Franklin Delano Roosevelt, you do solemnly swear that you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of your ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
I, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God. As I stand here today, having taken the solemn oath of office, in the presence of my fellow countrymen, in the presence of our God, I know that it is America's purpose that we shall not fail. In the days and the years that are to come, we shall work for a just and honorable peace, a durable peace, as today we work and fight for total victory in war. We can and we will achieve such a peace.
Britain's Home Guard, whose dogged courage stood between England and disaster in the early war days, parades in stand-down ceremonies, witnessed by the King and royal family in Hyde Park. These are the men who, unpaid and almost unarmed, responded to their commander and patrolled roads, watched for Nazi parachutists, and undertook the hundreds of home defense jobs when England's back was to the wall. Thousands of Londoners paused to pay tribute to these heroes. England will never forget her citizen soldiers. The new commander of the American Armed Forces in China, Major General Wiedemeyer, starts on a 3-day inspection tour as pictured by the Signal Corps. With the opening of the Lido-Burma Road, General Wiedemeyer's troops will get plenty of action. Major General Patrick J. Hurley presents to Chiang Kai-shek his credentials as Ambassador Plenipotentiary to the National Government of the Republic of China. General Hurley will do much to increase the already strong bond between the two allied nations. Anthony Eden takes a look at wartime Athens as top-ranking diplomats and army officers of the Allied powers gather to meet with Winston Churchill in an effort to solve the extremely difficult situation existing between Greek forces engaged in a bitter struggle for national rule. With Archbishop Damaskinos, he starts negotiations which resulted in the settlement of differences and brought final peace to Greece. General Douglas MacArthur, who swore he would lift the burden of Jap domination from the Philippine people, returns to inspect the damage done Manila. As he tours the ruined city, civilians greet their liberator. The Pearl of the Orient, wrested from the Japs, has now been returned to the Philippine people. On reconquered Corregidor, where the history of Jap brutality is written in blood, and where the infamous March of Death began, General MacArthur delivers a command that ensures the future liberty of the Philippines.
I see that the old flagstaff still stands. Have your troops hoist the colors to its peak, and let no enemy ever haul them down.
The President went to Yalta, conferred with Joseph Stalin and Winston Churchill on final steps to crush the Axis and establish peace. It was the last meeting of the original Big Three. Franklin Roosevelt looked tired and old. In April, a great man was dead. The loss of Franklin Delano Roosevelt was deeply felt by people all around the world. Cabinet room of the White House, Harry S. Truman was sworn in as president. On the very eve of victory and its disturbing aftermath, his was the heavy duty of carrying on with the leaders of America's allies.
Arriving at the White House, Mr. Hoover is greeted by the president, who will benefit by Mr. Hoover's vast experience in food administration during World War I. A wise counselor in time of need. Well, he's been asking for it, and here he is, sitting in the midst of Beverly Hills, the one and only Jack Benny. Listen in.
Here's one from Fred Allen. He says, I can't stand Jack Benny because he can't stand me more than I can't stand him. Allen can't be in it. He's the final judge. Hey, girls, look, isn't there one letter that says something nice about me?
No.
Oh, fine. Here's one from the... Wait a minute, what's going on here?
Cokes, donuts, and table tennis set the stage for the very latest in Teen Timers fashions in New York City. If you're a lady somewhere between the ages of 11 and 17, your heart will leap in anticipation at the preview of these inspired styles. For instance, for all year-round wear, here's a basque number trimmed in silk rickrack, accompanied by cute pigtail pixies. It looks like the coming generation is certainly in the know as far as chic is concerned. Accessories, of course, just like Mother and the big girls. Very fascinating. Their slogan is, don't call us Bobby Sockers, call us Teen Timers. Mistress Sinatra, please note.
In Washington, the annual presidential ball is the highlight of the annual March of Dimes to raise funds for the fight on infantile paralysis. Hollywood stars include Joey Brown, the delight of servicemen in every theater of war.
Claus. Well, I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I am so happy. This is the first time I've been in Washington now for about 3 years. Last time I was here, I played a few of the camps around close here, Fort Meade, Dix, Belvoir. Incidentally, I played one post near here that I was mighty proud of. It's one that was named after me, Fort Monmouth.
At the president's birthday celebration at the Statler Hotel, Mrs. Roosevelt cuts the traditional cake, assisted by Universal's Susanna Foster. The drive for infantile victims has been extended until the middle of February. So if you haven't, there's still a chance to do your part. Give, so they may have a happier birthday.
3,000 miles from Times Square, in Hollywood, the lights come up on Santa Claus Lane as the West Coast, too, gets into the swing of the Christmas holiday season. Looks forward for the first time in years to a peacetime Christmas.
These pictures, filmed by the underground and smuggled to their government in exile in London, are the first scenes to be shown of the Warsaw Uprising. Germans bombed and shelled sections held by the Poles and finally were able to move tanks and heavy equipment into the recaptured city. The 2-month-long revolt was a bloody and heroic battle, and starving Poles stripped dead horses for food. Forced to capitulate when no help came, the Poles signed an armistice with the Nazis. Once more, the Germans took over all parts of Warsaw, and the infantry reappears. But the battle's not over. The Patriots go underground once more to go to work with secret printing presses, turning out more than 100 publications for the people. And such lists as this report of the German atrocities at Lublin. The Germans systematically reduced the Warsaw ghetto to rubble, exterminating uncounted thousands. The underground still cover public places with their symbols of resistance, and every day sees new examples of their unrelenting courage in acts of sabotage. So efficient is their work that during the year, only 2/3 of Nazi troops and supplies reach their destinations. They dare to string up caricatures of Hitler. Poland will never die.
Surgeon General Kirk, shown here with Colonel Hobby, head of the WACs, has sent out an urgent appeal for 8,000 more WACs as our casualty lists mount to assist nurses in the 60 general hospitals in this country. They will assist the professionally trained nurse so that her greater skill can be spared for tasks only a nurse can do. The nurses are caring for as many as 40 sick and wounded soldiers instead of the normal quota of 10. To give the men the care they need and help speed them back to health, the aid of more WACs are needed immediately, for these men need a woman's touch. The WACs will be trained as medical and surgical technicians, such as laboratory experts, surgeons' aides, X-ray operators, and druggists among the many jobs. This appeal is urgent. Women soldiers to care for other soldiers whose tasks have already been so much greater. What woman wouldn't take deep pride in nursing a man back to health and speeding him on his way? Apply to any United States Army recruiting office and answer this appeal. Your mission will be one of mercy.
An armistice is in the making at Saint-Nazaire as members of the German garrison meet Americans to discuss terms of a 3-hour truce under which French civilians may be evacuated from the besieged port. Flying the international flag of mercy, the train prepares for the happy refugees who have endured months of unremitting siege with unwelcome Nazi troops. Signal Corps pictures show several thousand of these tragic victims of war, rescued from hunger and bombs on their way to sanctuary and safety with family and friends.
On May the 7th, in a little schoolhouse in Reims, France, came the unconditional surrender of Germany. General Alfred Jodl, Nazi Chief of Staff, signed the document formally ending all German resistance, as drawn by the representatives of Russia, Britain, France, and the United States. General Walter Beadle Smith signed for the Supreme Command, and the end of one of history's most massive and most brilliant campaigns brought a moment of well-earned joy to an American soldier named Ike Eisenhower. In the Pacific, in mortal combat against a fanatic foe, the Army, the Marines, and the Navy were driving to a finish fight alongside their gallant Chinese and Philippine allies. The Philippines had been won back, so had a score of other vital islands, large and small, including one called Iwo Jima. But the kamikaze corps, the Japanese pilots who rode the divine wind to certain suicide and possible devastation of our ships, were taking a heavy toll. Easter Sunday, following the pattern of invasion unleashed a half 100 times against Japanese bases, U.S. forces assaulted the island of Okinawa. First, the bombardment. Then, from the fleet standing offshore, the landing craft went in. The mighty pageant of assault rolled ahead again, this time less than 400 miles from Japan itself. This was the island that the Japanese simply could not afford to lose. For 4 months, they fought a desperate battle that cost them 90,000 lives. The island was safe in U.S. hands in July. First in a test in the United States New Mexico desert, then 5,000 miles away at Hiroshima, and then again at Nagasaki, came the world-shaking explosions of the atomic bomb.
There can be no peace in the world until the military power of Japan is destroyed, with the same completeness as was the power of the European dictators. To do that, we are now engaged in a process of deploying millions of our armed forces against Japan in a mass movement of troops and supplies and weapons over 14,000 miles, a military and naval feat unequaled in all history. Substantial portions of Japan's key industrial centers have been leveled to the ground in a series of record incendiary raids. What has already happened to Tokyo will happen to every Japanese city whose industries feed the Japanese war machine. If the Japanese insist on continuing resistance beyond the point of reason, their country will suffer the same destruction as Germany. Our blows will destroy their whole modern industrial plant and organization, which they have built up during the past century and which they are now devoting to a hopeless cause. We have no desire or intention to destroy or enslave the Japanese people, but only surrender can prevent the kind of ruin which they have seen come to Germany as a result of continued useless resistance.
Her navy virtually destroyed, Japan asked for peace. Aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, on Sunday, September the 2nd, 1945, the most horrible war in history came to its complete and formal end. Foreign Minister Shigemitsu signed for Japan. Douglas MacArthur, Supreme Commander. General Su Yong-chang signed for China. But the world could not forget or excuse the savage crimes of those who had opened that war, who had deliberately and willfully brought death and suffering to millions. Hideki Tojo, Japanese war premier, faced trial as the year ended. His suicide attempt would not prevent the carrying out of justice. Behind bars were others. Admiral Shimoda, Shigemori Koruda, General Nasaharu Koma, and Kingoro Hashimoto, Black Dragon terrorist. Across the earth, the pictorial record which the world had seen of German death camps would not be readily forgotten either. Nazi officials like Joseph Kramer, the Beast of Belsen, have already paid with their lives for the crimes they committed against innocent men, women, and children. In Milan, Italy, after 2 decades of swaggering, the inventor of fascism, Benito Mussolini, lay dead at the hands of the Italian people, with his henchmen and his mistress. Adolf Hitler, who had survived a bomb planted by one of his own officers in 1944, was presumably alive until the last days of Berlin. By the best evidence, he is now dead.
Secretary of State Edward R. Stettinius calls for full liberty for people throughout the world.
The 4 freedoms stated by President Roosevelt: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom from want, and freedom from fear, are, from the point of view of the United States, the fundamental freedoms which encompass all other rights and freedoms. The United States government will work actively and tirelessly, both for its own people and through the international organization for peoples generally, toward the protection and the promotion of these rights and freedoms.
At Nuremberg, the Hitler gang has gone on trial. For the first time, criminal war leaders are being judged by an international court, by mankind. Goering, Hess, von Ribbentrop, and the 17 others, men who had planned world conquest and the death and enslavement of millions, are now tried under law. And the law in all nations has rules for dealing with criminals.
65 battle bombers come into Bradley Field, Connecticut from Europe with more than 1,000 veterans of the Continental Air War. Home at last with 30-day furloughs. It's a dream sealed with a kiss. After their furloughs, the men will be trained in new heavy bombers. But now the only thoughts here are to sort their clothing and gear and head for home as soon as possible.
Prominent in the public eye is General Courtney Hodges, who arrives in his native Georgia after leading his victorious First Army through Germany. He receives an ovation from the citizens of Atlanta. One of the largest crowds in the city's history is on hand to honor Georgia's foremost soldier, the great leader of one of America's greatest fighting teams.
Here comes the bride. 10,000 times down under American servicemen have married Australian girls, and they formed a club for mutual help as they await transportation to their new homeland. Our soldiers came, these gals saw, and love conquered. Many have already come to the United States, but those waiting to sail make a bi-weekly visit to the American War Cemetery in Sydney to pay tribute to our soldier dead. They represent American wives, mothers, and sweethearts who have lost loved ones in this area. Those unknown are not forgotten by a grateful ally.
Sensation of this year's baseball season is one-armed Pete Gray of the St. Louis Browns. Despite his handicap, Pete asks and gives no favors, standing right up there with the best of them. He played 2 years for Memphis and came to the big leagues on his own merits. His arm was lost when he was 6, but that didn't kill his spirit nor his dreams of making the big leagues. His batting average is good, though most of his hits are singles. Even when he grounds out, he gets the plaudits of the crowd. In left field, he really shines, and base runners are wary of the speed with which he discards his glove and throws to bases. His pluck and determination is an inspiration to all. The basketball season hits its peak with the game at New York's Madison Square Garden between Notre Dame in the light jerseys and New York University. This is the brand of basketball that chalks up 126 points between them. The 18,000 on hand see the Irish go out for their 10th win in 12 meetings, and the lightning-fast Notre Dame team has the Violet on the run right from the start. This game developed into a thriller from the very first play, the best brand displayed in New York this season. Sparked by players like Big Vince Borila, he's only 6'4", Notre Dame was unstoppable. Here's an example of the play that spelled victory for the Irish. NYU stabs and stabs at the basket, but Notre Dame finally grabs the ball, comes down the court, outguessing their opponents at every step. Passing like this, leading to the final shot, sums up their 66-60 victory. Patriotism and war bonds packed the Coliseum in Houston, Texas for a championship match between champ Mildred Burke in white and the challenger May Weston. 11,000 bought 20 millions in bonds to see these two dignified young ladies have a quiet romp. Breathtaking artistry marks the opening of the Hollywood Ice Review, a spectacle that stars Sonia Henney, queen of the silver skates. With her partner, she displays the skill that lifted her to her throne. Her skill is unequaled, as she shows here, flashing blades in poetic motion. That war dog has become a pretty tough citizen during his service for Uncle Sam, and it's no wonder. A dog can stand so much, and one look at that kisser and it's right into Führer's face. But there comes a time in a canine's life when he's got to learn his manners again and get ready for all his good old lovable peacetime tricks. The Signal Corps camera follows the Pooch veteran on the last lap to the place he has fought to defend, home.
Next picture we see Dick Tracy. You know, the fine type of Dick Tracy? He's been a detective so long, and he still has that slender form. Lou Valentine, why do our detectives get fat, I wonder? Well, anyhow, here's Tracy. And he's asking, the only vehicle that left the house at that time was one of your laundry trucks. I'd like to question the driver. That district, Mr. Tracy, is covered by wet wash, Wally. He should be checking in at any time. Not very long, not very soon, from that crash he got on the noodle with that iron pot. And say, children, what does it all mean? It means that dirty money never brings any luck.
Modern production methods invade the home of Mr. and Mrs. Raymond McLeod, Weymouth, Massachusetts. Necessity being the mother of invention, Papa McLeod dreams up a universal feeder for his hungry triplets. There's pie in the sky and no ration points needed. And Doreen, David, and Donna Lee McLeod appreciate Pop's ingenuity. Well, one day they'll be big enough for beefsteak and mink coats, and then Papa will really have to get busy.